Have you been denied or cut off from long-term disability? Ask a Lawyer is here for you. Each week, experts from DisabilityRights.ca answer your questions. Visit cp24.com/askalawyer and watch Mondays at 9 p.m. on CP24.
Welcome to Ask a Lawyer Disability Law on CP24. Good to have you back for this half hour. Hope you tune in for the entire 30 minutes, give or take. Always a lot to learn about your disability rights when dealing with that insurance company. John Scholes here, your host, always with us. And on your screen momentarily, James Fireman. Want to reach out to James anytime, DisabilityRights.ca, or email is great, ask@DisabilityRights.ca. And the phone number, always a trusty one, 1-855-821-5900. We have a lot of ground to cover. James is going to come on momentarily, tell you again what the show is generally all about. We'll try to get to some questions, some emails, possibly some phone calls from one of our radio shows, which, by the way, I'll mention off the top, Saturdays, 1 p.m. on our brother station here locally in the GTA News Talk 1010. We do that for a complete hour. James is always dishing out the information. So join us and call into that show. Maybe you'll appear, your voice anyway, will appear on this show at a later date. The main topic a little later on, top 5 mistakes to avoid with long-term disability adjusters. That is a huge concern, so we'll get to that in a bit. But James, as we always start off the show with a week that was and just a general feel of what we do here. What do you think, pal?
Well, John, thanks so much. And, if you are not able to work because you have a disability, whether it's a physical disability or a mental health issue, what you're going to hear in the next half hour is critical. If you have a disability insurance policy, either through group benefits at work or perhaps a private plan that you purchased on your own, navigating disability insurance can be complicated and difficult, and that is why we're here. We are able to help no matter what stage of the process you're at, whether you've just applied for benefits or perhaps you've already applied and you're dealing with a difficult adjuster, a claims handler. Or maybe you've applied and your claim has been denied, or you were approved and they're looking to cut you off. Wherever you are, we're able to help, even if things seem to be going well. Even if they've approved you for benefits and they've been paying you for a while, what you're going to hear in the next half hour could be critical. And let me give you an example of exactly why. So Brent is a guy, he's in his mid-30s. Since high school, he's been a heavy equipment operator. A very physically demanding job, as you might imagine. Not something I've ever done, but it is something that requires great physical strength and stamina. And he's a tough guy. And he did this job, no issues, until about 6 years ago. He was in an accident and he had a neck issue. Now, he's a tough kid. And so he decides he doesn't want to stop working. He's going to power through this. And so he keeps working. And he's trying to get treatment, trying to get better, but it's not getting better. Go figure. Rattling around in a bulldozer for 8 to 10 hours a day isn't great if you already have a neck injury, it turns out. And so over time, his injury gets worse. And it gets to a point where his doctors say to him, Brent, you can't keep working anymore. You have to take some time off. And so he does. And so he applies for long-term disability, and believe it or not, he gets approved. Now, his claim was pretty obvious. It's a physically demanding job, and he can barely move his neck at all. It's just not something he was able to do. He gets his benefits, which is great, but unfortunately, the treatment isn't helping him very much. And so he's struggling, he's trying to get better, but he's not. Now, things seem to be going well, but as we know, at the 2-year mark, the test for whether or not you're entitled to benefits under a long-term disability policy changes. It goes from whether you're able to do your own occupation, in his case, a heavy machine operator, to any occupation that you're qualified for by training, education, or experience. And so his insurance company decides they're going to take a shot at it, even though his own doctors have been very clear he is not able to do any gainful employment. At this point, he can barely walk. He can walk for maybe 10 or 15 minutes. He can stand for about 20 minutes or so. Sitting is really difficult for him. He needs to lie down several times during the day. It's just not something he's going to be able to show up to a job to day after day. But his insurance company sends him for a functional capacity evaluation, and somehow the assessors hired by the insurance company determine that he's able to do at least a light physically demanding job, which is a farce. His doctors have clearly said that he can't. But the insurance company ignore his doctors and rely on their own assessor, and they say, you know what, at the 2-year mark, we're cutting off your benefits. So he tries to appeal and gets nowhere. But thankfully, he heard one of our radio shows and he called in, free consultation, of course, decided to retain me in my firm. We brought a lawsuit, and last month we settled his claim at mediation. They paid every dollar he was owed since the day they cut him off, and they put him back on claim, which for someone of his age, he's in his mid-30s, that's potentially another 30 years of benefits coming to him. And that is an unbelievable result. And so he was obviously very pleased, and it all started with a free phone call.
Want to mention as well, as James kind of alluded to there, pocket disability lawyer. That's another option to see if you're qualified, if you should be going through this whole concept, or at least this whole exercise of getting on disability. It takes about 30 seconds to use the website. It's anonymous, and you just punch in some key information, a bunch of drop-down menus, and about half a minute later, you will know. Again, pocketdisabilitylawyer.ca. But I want to get to a phone call. I mentioned at the top of the show, Saturdays, 1 p.m. News Talk 1010. You can call us for the hour and ask your questions. Let's get to phone call number one. Listen up.
I was diagnosed with cancer a while ago, and I applied for long-term disability through work so I can take time off to fight it. Last month, the insurance company cut me off, and a few days later, I was fired with no severance pay. I'm not really sure what I should do.
So,
what do you think?
This is a really difficult situation. Not only are you not getting your disability benefits, but now your employer has terminated and not paid severance. That's a difficult spot. So obviously in this situation, you want to make sure that you're getting not just disability law advice, but also employment law advice. Both of them are going to be really critical. But the thing that people do sometimes that puts them in a bad spot is they go one place for disability law, they go to another place for employment law, which you may think that makes sense, and you have two different lawyers that have expertise in both fields, and they're both trying to do their best for you. The problem is that there's a lot of overlap between disability and employment law, and if you don't understand how they integrate together, then the result is not going to be optimized. For example, in this situation, if this person's lawyer, their employment lawyer, got them this great severance package without understanding how that impacts the disability claim, all they've essentially done is they've gotten this great severance package that the insurance company, the disability insurance company, is going to take the benefit of. If you understand both parts of it, if you understand the disability and the employment, you can structure the settlement or the settlements of both of those claims in a way that's going to maximize the result so that you're not in that position, so that at the end of the day, you are going to be made whole. You're going to put the most money possible in your pocket, which ultimately is the result that you're going to need. And so you need a firm that's going to have expertise in both disability law and employment law, like Samphira Tamarkin.
We are warmed up nicely. Lots more to go, though. We'll get to our main topic on the other side of the break, which we'll dive into and come right back with lots more. So stay with us. Ask a Lawyer Disability Law here on CP24.
Do you have questions about your employment law rights? Ask a Lawyer is here for you. Each week, experts from employmentlawyer.ca answer your questions. Visit cp24.com/askalawyer and watch Wednesdays at 9 p.m. on CP24.
Okay, welcome back. Ask a Lawyer Disability Law. This is CP24. John Scholes here. James Fireman here as well. DisabilityRights.ca. Reach out to James with email, ask@DisabilityRights.ca, or the phone number. Consultations are free. You just got to pick up and dial 1-855-821-5900. Scan that QR code as well, and you'll be in good hands with James and the rest of his team that he's got working with him. Okay, main topic time. We always have one every week, and we're going to throw this right to James. The top 5 mistakes to avoid with your long-term disability insurance adjuster. It's a mouthful, but let's get going, James. Number 1, treating your adjuster as a friend. What do you think about that?
Well, you have to take a step back, John. You have to think about what the insurance company's motivation is. The insurance company is a corporation, and they are in business to make money for their shareholders. And that motivation is going to inform how the insurance company acts, not just the company as a whole, but everyone right down to the claims handler that you're speaking to on a day-to-day basis. And the claims handler's job is to try and find a way to get you off of claim. And part of that is to make you trust them, to make that you tell them things that you otherwise might not, and you have to keep that in mind. The insurance company is looking for a way to deny your claim. So that doesn't mean that you should be rude or withholding from your insurance company, but it does mean you have to understand what the motivation is of the claims handler and treat the conversations that way. Don't be casual with your language when you're talking with an insurance claims adjuster. Make sure that you are being very specific. If they say, "How are you doing?" oftentimes you might just respond with "Oh yeah, things are great," without really thinking about it, because that's just the way that we talk in day-to-day conversations. Be careful about that. Be careful. Say how you're actually feeling. If you are not doing well, say that. Now, if an insurance company were to cut you off because you answered the first question, "How you doing?" with "great," they'd have a big problem, of course, but it does set a tone. And over the course of the conversation, you really do want to be careful about what you are saying and make sure you understand what their motivation is right from the start.
And that leads into mistake number 2 that you make, that is failing to confirm all conversations in writing. You got to do that, emails, pen and paper, whatever it takes, right?
Yeah, I mean, best case scenario is all communication would be done by email, and certainly you can request that. Now, my experience is most insurance companies aren't going to go along with that. They're going to want to call you as much as they can. The insurance company, the claims handler, is certainly going to keep their own notes about the conversation. But you should be doing the same thing. And here's the way to do it. When they call you, ask for a moment and say, "You just got to get a pen and paper, or you got to get to your computer," and just take notes as detailed as you can while you're having the conversation, and make sure you're getting the substance of what you're talking about. When the conversation is over, take your notes and put them in an email and send that to your claims adjuster, and make sure that they receive it, because as long as you've done that, as long as you've sent that, then your record of the conversation is going to be the record of the conversation. If your claims handler thinks otherwise and doesn't respond to your email, doesn't say anything about it, and a year from now they cut you off and you're involved in a lawsuit, if you sent that email and they didn't correct it, a judge is going to look at that and say, well, obviously, if there was something that you didn't feel was right, you would have corrected it. Mm-hmm. So it must be that what this person wrote down is in fact correct.
Nice. Number 3 is this, James. We're talking about mistakes you can make with that insurance adjuster, providing incomplete or inaccurate information to them.
Yeah, so this really goes back to the first 2 points. You really want to make sure when you're dealing with your insurance company and the claims handler that what you are saying is going to have credibility. So one, don't lie. That goes without saying, and certainly most people don't approach their interactions with insurance companies with the intention of misleading or certainly not outright lying. But it is really important that when you're dealing with your insurance company, you are forthright and complete in your answers. Now, being complete doesn't mean giving more information than you need to in order to answer whatever question. They're asking you, what activities have you been doing? Tell them the activities that you've been doing, but you don't have to give any more information about those activities unless they're asking you for it. But don't feel as though you're supposed to edit what you're telling them, because if you do, you could wind up in some trouble. If, let's say, your doctor has told you it's a good idea that you go and swim in the local pool, there's no problem with that, as long as you are honest with your insurance company that you're doing it. Obviously, if your doctor is saying it's recommended treatment, then it's perfectly reasonable for you to do it. But if your insurance company says, what type of physical activity are you getting? And you say, oh, nothing. I just stay in bed all day. I've never gone out and done any form of exercise. And they have video surveillance of you going to the local pool every week. Then you have a big problem where none would have existed if you were just forthright.
We are talking about mistakes, 5 of them you can make potentially with your insurance adjuster when it comes to long-term disability. Number 4, James, who's not guilty of this in some way, shape, or form? Signing documents without fully understanding them, gym memberships, mortgages, car loan. We all do it. We just sign, right?
Yeah, you scroll to the bottom
whatever.
This is obviously very good advice for not just dealing with your insurance company, but in all facets of life, of course. You do want to make sure that you are reading over anything that your insurance company is asking you to sign carefully. And if you're not sure about why they're asking you to sign it, ask. Ask where in the policy it says that you are required to agree to whatever it is they're asking you to agree to. It may well be that they're entitled to that information, and if so, so be it, that's fine. But if it's not something that they're entitled to under the policy, then they're not entitled to it. In some situations, I might still be willing to provide it to them because ultimately you want to keep getting your benefits. And if you're butting heads with your insurance company over trivial things, you're risking getting those benefits cut off. But you have to understand exactly what it is that you're signing. And here's the thing, if you're not sure, well, there's a good solution to that. You give us a call. We're happy to give you a free consultation, talk to you about whatever it is your insurance company is asking you to sign, and see whether or not it's a good idea.
We'll get to one more. Number 5, James, top 5 mistakes avoided with long-term disability insurance adjuster, accepting everything the adjuster says as correct and without question.
Yeah, that is definitely a big mistake, John. So insurance companies make a lot of mistakes. Claims handlers make a lot of mistakes. And if we're being generous in our interpretation of why this happens, you might say it's because the claims handlers tend to be inexperienced. They tend to lack some knowledge about what they're doing. They tend to be overworked. And so you combine those 3 ingredients and you're going to get a fair amount of mistakes. If I'm being less generous in how I'm interpreting it, I might go back to what I talked about earlier in the show and recognize that insurance companies have a motivation to cut you off benefits whenever they can. And so these mistakes where they somehow happen to overlook some critical information that your treating doctor has told them in order to come up with an answer that allows them to cut off your benefits, well, that may not be a mistake per se. But just because your insurance company is telling you something, just because your insurance company is saying you're okay to work, doesn't mean that you can. If you know inside your own body that you can't work, if your doctor is telling you that you can't work, or your specialist is saying you can't work, I don't care what your insurance company says. Your insurance company are not medical experts. And if they are telling you something that you know to be wrong, do not take their word for it. Give us a call. We're happy to walk you through it and figure out what we can do.
We have lots more of your questions on the other side of the break, which we'll dive into right now. So we're coming right back with that. So stay tuned. Don't go anywhere, and we'll return with more Ask a Lawyer Disability Law here on CP24.
If you've been denied or cut off from long-term disability, Ask a Lawyer is here for you. Each week, experts from DisabilityRights.ca answer your questions. Visit cp24.com/askalawyer and watch Mondays at 9 p.m. on CP24.
All right, we're back with Ask a Lawyer Disability Law here on CP24. Still got a few minutes to go. You know, every week James and his team get a lot of general questions come to them, and they pick through them, and a lot of them are really good because they give you insight on what we talk about every week on the show. So I want to get to a couple now. The first one, James, is coming up. You got to listen for it. Here it comes.
Can your insurance company cut off your disability claim if your social media posts show you happy and attending events like a wedding?
You know, it's funny, John, when social media really became prominent about 15 years ago or so, I remember it was easy enough to say to my clients, all right, don't go on social media. If you're on, shut your account down. Realistically, that's not happening anymore. So what I tell my clients is this: if you're on social media, be aware of your privacy settings and be aware of what is going on your social media pages. Make sure that people who you don't know, that you don't approve of, can't access that information, and that other people can't freely post on your page without you approving of it. That's step number 1. But let's say it's already happened and you have some posts up that show you, as the question asks, having a good time at a wedding, having a drink, or maybe celebrating, maybe even dancing. Well, it's not the end of the world. First of all, we're at a point in time now where people have a much better understanding of what a social media post really is. It's not an accurate depiction of people's lives. It is the best of. It is you perhaps at your best moment, and it does not really reflect what is going on. And people generally have an understanding of that, but insurance companies will take that out of context if they can. And if that has happened, it's not the end of the world. If your insurance company decides to try and use a social media post out of context, clearly for purposes that are a reach for what they're trying to argue, then we can help. And I've certainly had cases in the past where an insurance company has pointed to a social media post as part of its justification for terminating benefits. And we were quite successfully able to challenge that and get my clients the money that they were entitled to.
Question number 1 right there. Here comes question number 2. Listen up again.
Do an employee's long-term disability benefits end if their employer fires them while they are on disability?
Well, this is fortunate. This is a really easy question to answer. The answer is no. As soon as you go on leave, on medical leave, even if you haven't applied for disability benefits yet, your disability claim has been crystallized. And whatever happens with your employment from that point on, you're still entitled to those benefits. Even if you're fired and you lose all of your extended health benefits, dental benefits, and you even don't have any ongoing disability coverage, you're still entitled to your disability benefits from the claim as long as you went on leave while you still had those benefits.
All right, good stuff. We appreciate both those questions. Got time for an email, which we'll get to on the other side of the break, so stick around for that. Ask a Lawyer. Disability Law continues on CP24.
Have you been denied or cut off from long-term disability? Ask a Lawyer is here for you. Each week, experts from DisabilityRights.ca answer your questions. Visit cp24.com/askalawyer and watch Mondays at 9 p.m. on CP24.
Welcome back. Ask a Lawyer, Disability Law, CP24. We got time for an email, James, so I'm going to give it to you right now. Listen up. It goes like this. After suffering multiple injuries in a serious car accident over 2 years ago, I was approved for LTD benefits that were later cut off. My first appeal failed, and I've just filed a second one. Should I contact you for help if this appeal is also denied? Or should we say when?
Well, yes, but you should contact us now because it's going to get denied. That's the way the appeals go. Appeals are not part of your policy. Appeals are just a process that your insurance company has invented so that when they deny or cut off your claim, you don't immediately go to a lawyer, start a lawsuit, and take control of the process out of their hands. So they say, hey, we have this appeal. You can go ahead and maybe we'll reconsider. Well, guess what? It's going right back to the same people that already made the decision to cut off your benefits. Unless you have information that is going to significantly change what your insurance company understands about your claim, there is no point. The appeal is just a waste of time. And if they drag it out long enough, past 2 years, you're not going to have the ability to bring a lawsuit at all.
Thank you, sir. Excellent. We are done for another show. Reach out. I'm going to give you the information one more time before we fly out of here. To reach these guys, it is 1-855-821-5900. Ask at DisabilityRights.ca or just DisabilityRights.ca. And the radio show, as I mentioned, News Talk 1010, Saturdays, 1 p.m. You can join us for that anytime. Call into the show, and your calls may appear on a later show right here. Thank you so much for joining us. Ask a Lawyer, Disability Law. You're free for now, and we'll catch you next time.